We are happy to be joined today by Mr. Narendra Taneja. Mr. Taneja is one of the foremost, if not the foremost, energy expert in India. He's also the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Mr. Taneja, welcome to the show.
Thank
I
you.
would
Thanks for
start
having me.
by asking you the question that there has been a change in government in the United States, probably with far-reaching implications. How do you think the coming of Joe Biden as a president going to impact the US-Iran relationship? And would you think there's an opportunity with the coming of the new administration of a realignment of India-Iran energy relationship?
What has happened in Washington, D.C., and what's going to formally happen on 20th of January have very far-reaching implications on the energy sector in particular, globally. I mean, not only in the western part of the world or eastern part of the world, but in most parts of the world, more particularly in the Middle East, and also vis-a-vis China. And that is, in turn, going to have, some very important, some key changes in terms of how oil is supplied to India, particularly from Iran in future, hopefully, and at the same time, geopolitics and geoeconomics of the Middle East, which is a critical area as far as India's energy security is concerned, and also partly Central Asia, because it will have its own direct effect on relations between between China and the United States. So I think this time round, when we see the change of guards at White House, this is not only about the United States. It's after a long time that this is going to have so far-reaching, and in some cases even fundamental, changes in terms of the way we have known the world the last 4 years and the way we are going to know the world now in coming next 4 years and beyond. Coming particularly to the Middle East, I think, because Mr. Biden is more conservative, he understands foreign affairs, foreign policy, geopolitics, geoeconomics, and overall global affairs, very well. Quite a different person from Mr. Donald Trump, who are more transactional, who has his own view and didn't have much regard, if I may say so, for experts on Middle East, experts on China, experts on global affairs, politics, and so on and so forth. He had his own ideas. And of course, the United States had paid the price for it. In a way, world has also paid the price for it. But hopefully, things will begin to change and world will become a little bit more predictable and a little bit more stable. And we are going to see the results of that, for instance, in our neighborhood, particularly the Middle East, including Iran and China. And I personally feel that, when it comes to your pointed question on Iran, I think we're going to see change in terms of the US policy on Iran, which may not happen overnight. We may not see, for instance, the United States lifting sanctions against Iran overnight, but I think the signals that are already there and that, is going to be different policy. And eventually it may probably go back. We're going to see that, and which means that in time to come, you're going to see that the US is going to ease sanctions. May not do it to start with formally, but you will see that they will not be so stringent in terms of implementing that. And we may also see that more foreign capital, especially in the oil and gas area, would start flowing into Iran, including maybe Indian companies will start going back to Iran and explore the future opportunities and possibilities, since they know Iran so well. And also Iranian oil will start flowing into international market. Maybe to start with, it would be only a trickle, but over a period of time, it will grow maybe up to 2 million barrels a day, which would make a huge difference in terms of global supply chain and global supply capacity, which of course would be a very positive thing for India. Let's
So,
not
if I
forget
could
one.
just interrupt you here, sir, when do you think this supply is going to ease? Because, as you said, the sanctions are not going to be lifted overnight. When do you think the supply will increase, and what impact will it have on the pricing?
Well, good question. You see, number one is that I think you can see the stress that we had seen in global supply in terms of absence of Iranian crude oil, especially in the open market. That has already started easing. in the sense that people have already started, basically going for some future contracts and all that. Even if the Iranian oil does not start flowing directly into Indian refineries, if that oil is going into international market one way or another, it will add to the supply. It will basically put pressure on prices, and that would be a good news for India's economy. And Iranian oil may also be available to India from a spot market, which means you are not buying it directly from Iran, but it still is coming to your refineries, and it is adding to global oil supply. So my sense is that we will start seeing some positive development in that direction by this summer. Some Iranian oil may start trickling into the global oil markets, and maybe by end of next year, we will see some countries, especially from Europe, like Germany and France, launching some new initiatives to ensure that Iranian oil is actually starts flowing into international oil markets. And so I would say very safely, let's say 2021, second half of 2021 is going to see some results in terms of, easing of, tensions against Iran, especially when it comes to oil. But as I said, international companies have already started, looking at Iran. They are already dusting their files. They are trying to basically, revive their old contracts, including Indian companies. We have all started looking at Iran now that post, Donald Trump era, when the United States probably is going to be not as tough on sanction as in the initial months, and maybe later on may even lift them. So that would have the positive rip. So for India, I think it's a good news. Let's not forget one thing. We are an energy deficit country, especially when it comes to natural gas and oil. And Iran is energy surplus country. And India's heart has always been with Iran in terms of, oil and gas. But then due to sanction, due to, strategic relationship with the United States, we had to follow a more pragmatic policy, which Iran also hopefully understands. But right now, with 20th of January, I think things will begin to change. Most countries have started preparing for it, and India would be among them.
Excellent. Now, coming specifically to India, you mentioned there may be investment opportunities coming up. And I remember long back we used to have this Farzan B gas field, and something went wrong because of US pressure which was coming in. So could you be more specific about the investment opportunities for Indian companies in Iran once things start easing?
You see, when you look at Iran, and once the sanctions are gone, and once you can have transactions with Iran, because the biggest problem the most countries faced during the sanction was that you were not able to remit money into Iran, or to basically get Iranian money into the seller's bank account. That was a major thing. The second was, of course, shipping, because even if, for instance, Iran was willing to sell and you were willing to buy, ships were not available, because no insurance company, most of them controlled by Western countries, were actually ready to charter their ships out to the buyers. So that was a challenge. But Iran, when it comes to natural gas reserves, Iran and Russia are the biggest source of natural gas. And Indian economy is also moving in the direction of natural gas. We want to reduce our dependence on coal, reduce our dependence on oil, and go more in the direction of natural gas. Basically, next 30 years belong to natural gas. And when we look around, since we are not very blessed in terms of natural gas reserves, then when we look around, we find that Iran is the most convenient place for us to go for natural gas, together with Russia. And Russian Iranian gas can also be connected, in the sense you can build from Russia, gas can come to Iran, from Iran, it can come to India. So it can be both Russian of Iranian origin. But let's focus on Iran. Now, looking at the gas, reserves that they have, proven reserves, and I'm not even talking of potential. When you look at potential, Iran may actually have more natural gas than even Russia, which means they may have gas potential, which is the largest in the world. Most part of which is still not explored or proved, is not proven. But that said, you see, so for us, it becomes a natural supplier of energy. And my own view is that, ONGC Videsh, which discovered Farzan B field that you mentioned, and plus we have also shown Indian company OVL, ONGC Videsh, has shown interest in investing up to $12 billion, not only in exploration and production of natural gas, but also setting up export facility that is in the form of LNG, liquefied natural gas. So all that, is still there. The plans are still there. The willingness is still there. There may be some private sector companies also willing to do that. There are also, plans that, India is interested in building a subsea gas pipeline also from Iran to India. Government
Just hold
companies
that
are
thought,
also.
sir. I was just coming to that. You see, we had earlier the Iran, Pakistan, India gas pipeline proposal. Now, obviously, because of geopolitical relations and especially the Pakistan factor coming in, that project could never go through. But as you mentioned, could you elaborate on the subsea project? Because if I remember right, there was this proposal to take Iranian gas from Asulia gas fields and then take it to Oman and from Oman to the western coast of India. Is that something still on the radar?
Well, it's still on the radar, and technology is now fortunately available. But I think when you look at the economics of the whole thing, if you have to bring own land via Pakistan or IPI, as it is still known, Iran, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, I still think that I'm not among those who have not given up. I still think that that makes a lot of sense. It is a very good economics, and it's a natural gas which Iran is can sell, and India is, of course, a very natural market for that in this part of the world. But if that is not possible, the other way, of course, is to bring it by sea. But when you look at the economics of building a gas pipeline sub-sea, it's pretty expensive. It's very capital intensive. But that doesn't mean that, that it cannot be done. Now technology is available. But my own sense is with liquefied natural gas, basically taking natural gas, you liquefy it, put it into a tanker and bring it into India. That's a much better economics now because the price of LNG has gone down. Price of building terminals, export terminals and import terminals has gone down. Cost of construction of LNG ships, which used to cost $260 million per ship, has come down now to $130, $140 million. And so which means the overall economics now is pretty good. So we don't necessarily have to think in terms of a subsea pipeline. All we have to do is just to, as soon as sanctions are gone, or at least sanctions are not as strong as they are today, then we can just build LNG terminal there, which may be India specific, and bring that gas by ship. It takes for LNG ships just 4 days to deliver that cargo to a port in Gujarat or in Maharashtra. So I think, economics is very good. So I think India should be focusing on acquiring gas assets in Iran in terms of exploration and production. Farzan B should also be renegotiated and then bring that gas by ship. At the same time, I think India and Pakistan may continue to have differences of whatever nature. But I think when it comes to the people, when it comes to economy, I think India and Pakistan should sit across the table and Iran together, of course, and try to build this pipeline. This pipeline from Iran via Pakistan and India, the other pipeline, which is still in limbo, that is from Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. I think we should keep politics out of these gas pipelines because these gas pipelines are good for the economy of all the countries involved. And at the same time, these pipelines will, in the process, generate tremendous goodwill for India in these countries and for Pakistan and India. And in the process, stimulate economy, create jobs, and may also serve as a catalyst for changing first the energy landscape in this part of the world, and eventually economic, and hopefully even political and geopolitical. I think politics may continue, they may keep on exchanging what they exchange, but at the same time, I think we should try to go ahead with these gas pipelines because they have the potential to write a new future for both India and Pakistan. So I think we must give these two gas pipeline a chance. But at the same time, I want to add one thing here. On Farzan B, Iran should also get this message. Iran has been rather unfair when it comes to India. Farzan B was discovered by India. Iran should have agreed to give it to India, but they were playing a very tough ball just because they perceive India as to be very close to the United States. They should appreciate Iran is a very mature country, very sophisticated country. They have a very sophisticated diplomacy. They should understand and appreciate that India is within its right to protect its international interest and its strategic relations with the United States. That was never at the cost of Iran, and that will never be at the cost of Iran. They got to appreciate and allow ONGC Videsh, which discovered this field, a stake there, and they should stop playing unfair game there. I think that will repair the damage that was done to our bilateral relationship in terms of natural gas, and also in the process will, of course, open opportunities for billions of dollars of new investment. Indian oil and gas companies, both public sector and private sector, they're ready with a check in their hand to invest billions of dollars in Iran exploration and production of natural gas in particular, and gas-based infrastructure for LNG, for pipeline, and so forth, so on and so forth. And we have everything that they need. Iran needs all this from abroad, and we are there to provide us. So I think Iran should look at India more with an open eyes and try to be a little bit more fair and try to build this interdependence between India and Iran. They should also, Iranian companies should also come and invest in oil and gas sector in India, so that it's not only India going into Iran, but Iran can come also India. We are equal countries. We are great friends. We are civilization friends, and I think we should now. Here is an opportunity in 2021 to take it to the next stage.
So, sir, you said Farzan B should be renegotiated. Now, when you say that, what exactly do you mean by renegotiation? Number one, and number two, considering that Indian companies are now once again showing interest in investing in the country, in especially in the oil and gas sector, what kind of dimensions, what kind of dynamics should our companies keep in mind while we forge, alliances with Iranian companies?
Well, you see, when you look at Iran, for instance, Iran basically today and post the now the new regime in the United States, they will need two things: A, capital, mostly in dollars or euro, and B, technology. And we have both. Our oil and gas company have got both. They have got capital. We can raise any amount of money that we need, for instance, to invest in Iran in dollars or in euro or any other hard currency. And B, of course, they don't need to worry about us, because whatever we do in Iran in terms of investment, market is secure. We are not doing it for any third country. We need it for our own consumption. Today, our dependence on imported oil is in the region of 86%. 86% of oil that we consume, and we consume roughly 5 million barrels of oil every day. Just imagine. So, I mean, we can get it from Iran. If they allow us to invest more, they can be our money, our capital, our technology, and they get the benefit of it. B, when it comes to natural gas, we import today roughly more than 50% of our total requirement of natural gas, which is only going to grow. And they have got this plenty of natural gas. So it's actually no cost to them. It's economics which works very well. In the process, of course, it brings the goodwill. But what happened in Farzad B, they kept on negotiating, and finally they said, look, they're going to give it to some other company, and they were Chinese and a few others. Now the point is, that's not how, for instance, you do business between two such close friends. That leads to misunderstanding. I would not say trust deficit, but misunderstanding. But in business, India probably is willing to archive the whole thing. And Iran should also be willing to archive the past. And let's build a new relationship, which means that you allow Indian companies to move into Farzad B. And also this LNG terminal proposal, they accept it, or for that matter in other places. And at the same time, building gas pipeline within Iran, which may be meant for India. And also explore the possibilities of India and Iran investing together in Caspian. Caspian is also, very rich in oil and gas, so that we can bid there together, we can work there together, invest there together, bring the Caspian natural gas and oil also via Iran to India through these India-specific, gas export terminals in Iran. So, and then, of course, beyond that, Russian gas via Iran coming to India. So, I mean, the potential is tremendous. In coming 30 years, India is going to be a big importer of natural, one of the largest importer of natural gas in the world. Today, if we have got 5 or 6 LNG import terminals, the number is going to go up to 15 terminals by 2030, or maybe even 17 import terminals by 2030. And where all this gas is going to come from? Angola is going to come from Latin America or the United States. Iran is just next door. It makes better economics. It makes better sense that Iran becomes the biggest supplier of natural gas to India. Qatar is there. Qatar is just next door. So I think Iran needs to look at India with fresh eyes. Iran needs to look at economics with the economic eyes. I mean, there will always be some issues because Iran is an extremely ambitious country. They want to emerge as the powerful hegemon. Not only I'm using the word hegemon, very carefully. But that's what their ambition is, to be hegemon in the Middle East, hegemon in the Central Asia, and we have our own way of looking at Middle East and Central Asia. So there might be some, at different stages, some conflict of interest, conflict of looking at the way of Middle East and all that. But that's, we all are mature, sophisticated countries, and we know how to handle them. But let, for instance, what they can sell and we can buy, take, for instance, the precedent, take the lead, so that we can exploit the potential and we can build new bridges between India and Iran.
Mr. Taneja, if we take this forward, you mentioned this interesting concept of energy diplomacy, that through energy, then we build closer ties, and that has a diplomatic and even a geopolitical spin-off. As we move forward with Iran, how important do you think is the revival or the further maturation of the Chabahar project and the need to reach out from Chabahar to Afghanistan, which is extremely important to us, both in terms of resources which Afghanistan has when it comes to lithium, and that translates into new energy vehicles, etc., and from a geopolitical and stability point of view. So how important would Iran be in stabilizing relations with Afghanistan through the development of the Chabahar route?
Well, Atul, when you look at the map very carefully, a stable Afghanistan, a prosperous Afghanistan, hopefully a democratic Afghanistan, is in the interest of Iran. I mean, if Iran is not stable, is not prosperous, does it really help Iran? It doesn't. It only helps Pakistan. So, and Pakistan, of course, wants to basically convert Afghanistan into its own economic and political backyard. And I think if that happens, that will be extremely unfortunate. That's not in India's interest. That's not, first and foremost, not in the interest of the people of Afghanistan. In any country, our sympathy and our care is first for the people of Afghanistan. With them, we have enjoyed now close ties, both emotional, economic, cultural, political, for millenniums now. And the same goes with Iran. So I think, it's important there for Iran to appreciate that good, working relationship, investment together in Chabahar, so that we can build a kind of, a reliable, high-tech and pipeline of supplies to Afghanistan via Chabahar, and if possible from some other routes too. I think that's in the interest not only of India, but in Iran itself. So this is very, very important. I'm personally hopeful that in time to come, you are going to see that Chabahar, probably Iran will be willing, Iran will be more open, so that India and Iran can work together in order to build these supply pipelines from Chabahar and other parts in the region into Afghanistan, so that Afghanistan can realize its full potential economically. And Afghanistan has a lot to offer to the world, including Iran, in terms of its economic potential. So I think politics is fine, but we got to understand that, when it comes to economy, that's what matters most to the people. And energy, what brings India and Iran together? Of course, there is a great history. There we have enjoyed the civilization links. We still use many Persian words in our language. They use many things which have gone from India over the past 2-3 millenniums, but that's not enough. What brings India and Iran together in a very concrete way, which will build this interdependence, and that area is energy. Because, when you look at oil and gas sector of India, oil and gas sector alone is 15% of India's GDP. 15% is very, very significant. Is bigger than total GDP of Iran. Only oil and gas, part of India's GDP. And that is when we are so import dependent. So if Iran can look at it very carefully and keep politics out and look at this, what can bring India and Iran closely, I think we have got next 10 years, which can completely transform in terms of building a new era of energy ties between the two countries. And Iran should also facilitate if we can build our own land gas pipeline from Iran into India. But let's not forget one thing. Even if we build Iran, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, what Iran has to offer in terms of its gas potential, one gas pipeline can't carry it. We will still need ships. We may need 2 gas pipelines eventually, and so on and so forth. Because the potential is so much, and the need of India in terms of natural gas, as we try to meet the Paris climate deal agreements is going to be tremendous. And don't forget one thing, per capita gas consumption in India today is among the lowest in the world, which means that, we still have 80% people who are not part of the natural gas economy. Actually, it may be more than 80%. Now, we want to take natural gas to every single household across the country. Today's LPG, which is not natural gas, is liquefied petroleum gas. We want to take, natural gas. Like in Delhi, you get it piped natural gas. We would like the entire country to be covered by natural gas because it's more eco-friendly. It's good on your lungs, good on your health, good on environment. So, and that gas when you look at the map carefully, actually can come from Iran. So tremendous potential. And I think energy diplomacy should be used in such a way as bring, economic benefits to the people of both Iran and Pakistan and Afghanistan and India. I think this region has tremendous energy. If there is, Atul, if there is one commodity or one sector which can completely transform the political landscape of region between South Asia and the Middle East, that is actually energy, oil and gas. Oil and gas can completely, given a chance, oil and gas alone has this potential to completely transform the political landscape of the region, starting from Chittagong to going right up to Jerusalem.
One question, China and Iran have thrashed out a $400 billion deal. Now, how will that impact Indian investment or relations between India and Iran?
Well, Mahua, if you look at carefully, China has this habit of, China is very good at this, shock and awe kind of thing. When you announce in a big way, we're going to invest $430 billion in Iran. I think, you have to take that with a pinch of salt. I think, there is, I've asked for details. There is no roadmap ready. There is no blueprint ready. Milestones are not known. I think this was done at the time when Iran needed capital. Iran needed attention, and Iran could use that vis-a-vis, let's say, United States. Say, all right, if you don't want, we've got a friend in China. So it works very well for China, especially their BRI initiative, and it worked very well for Iran because they could always say, look, we are independent and you can continue with sanctions. We don't actually need you. But that's not exactly the case. When you look at Iran carefully and go to Tehran, talk with the people, it's still, even today, and I say with all seriousness, it's still the people they respect most. And they are in awe of. That is actually still the West. Iran may be in Asia, but they still think that West is the best. And that's very often a problem when Indians and others deal with them. And so I think coming to China, my own sense is that, of course, Iran will, take money and take capital, take technology, even allow Chinese company to invest in all that. But they're not going to put all eggs in one basket. Iran is a very sophisticated country. It's not only old civilization, they're very smart people. They're not going to do that. They will take the maximum possible, but at the same time, once the new administration is in place in the United States, you will see more German money capital coming into Iran. You will see more French. You will see more Swedish, more Norwegian, more British, and hopefully more Indian and American also eventually. So I think Iran is a very smart country. They're going to strike the right balance. They know that you can't let a country like China alone to come and overtake the most important sector from that is the oil and gas sector. I don't think that China may want it, China may wish it, China may come out with a strategy, and China may offer that on a platter made of platinum or whatever. But I don't think Iran is going to take it just like that. Iran is very important. They're going to deepen their relationship with the West first, especially countries like Germany and France, and then eventually with Britain, and then hopefully with India fast, and then with the United States eventually. So I think that's the direction it's going to take. But at the same time, they will also take more from China also, but not China alone. So I don't think that you will see in next 10 years or 15 years, China actually sitting there invested $430 billion as they have now. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
You mentioned about Russia as a source for supply of energy to India. and also the possible linkages which Russia and Iran may establish, do you think there's a possibility of a trilateral energy partnership between India, Iran, and Russia?
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we know Russia very well. And if you look at the history in 1970s and 1960s, most of our oil used to come from Iraq, when especially the time when President Saddam was in power. So this oil which was supplied by Iraq was actually the oil that was, out of the deal that we had with Russia or the Soviet Union in those days. So we will sign an agreement with the Soviet Union for importing oil, but physically that oil was always coming from Iraq. So it was Iraqi oil coming under the India-Soviet Union deals. So I'm quoting that just to relay this thing. When you look at the geography and supply routes, it makes a lot of sense, for instance, for India to bring Russian oil and gas via Iran. You can use Caspian or you can use the land route, but it can be Russian gas and the Caspian gas coming together with, of course, Iranian gas coming into India. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to our requirement of natural gas over the coming 30 to 35 years. So I think this trilateral kind of thing between Russia, Iran, and India, and all these three countries know each other very well. Iran knows Russia very well. We know Russia very well. So I think there will be nothing. It will be like meeting of mind and meeting of friends. But at the same time, it will make great economics, and it will make, for instance, good opportunity for Russian exporters and Iranian exporters and Indian importers, because this is something that we need. And as you know, Russia's state-owned company called Rosneft is already in India. They have a few years ago, they acquired India's a very large refiner called SR Oil, which is now known as Nayara Energy. That's a Russian company, out and out. And they are now looking even to buy Bharat Petroleum. Bharat Petroleum used to be Shell, a multinational company, before Indira Gandhi nationalized it. And they're very keen to acquire it. We don't know what happens eventually, but they are among those who are bidding for it. So which shows the Russian appetite for Indian market. And Russian oil and gas companies know it very well, that in order to secure supply, it is important that they invest even more in India. Let's not forget one thing. When we talk of energy security, for us, energy security is securing supply. And for Russia and Iran, energy security is basically securing demand. And where is it? And India is the best place if you have to secure demand for your oil and gas. So I think this is the direction we should be. There have been some discussions on that, but I think we should take new initiatives together with Iran and Russia and try to formalize and build new routes of gas supplies and oil supplies to India from these two very important suppliers of hydrocarbons, not only to Asia, but to the entire world.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing
very
your
much.
expertise and your wisdom with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you, Moa.